Yeah, just like we're doing war. We're doing war again.
Yep.
Here
we go. Round 700.
Yep. So.
Have you seen some of the videos of like the missiles coming from Iran? Like people in jets, like or in passenger aircraft, and it's just like out of a movie.
Yeah.
Just like through the air.
Yeah. The ones that we
probably paid for.
Supplied to them and paid, or at least paid for.
Right.
Yeah. It's such a classic, like Iron Man, when he's laying down in one of the first movies, and a bomb or a missile like comes and lands. I could be getting this a little bit wrong. And he's sitting there like waiting for it to explode, and then I think he like opens his eyes and he looks, and it's like Stark Industries.
Right next to him is a dud. That's like the opening scene. That's like one of the opening scenes of Iron Man, right?
Yeah. I think
it's
so.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
And it's like, I built that.
Yep.
I almost took him out. That is a great like analogy or imagery for what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Tyson, welcome back.
Definitely not here to talk about
world politics.
Powers.
I tricked you. I told you we were going to talk about parenting and business, and I opened it right up with nuclear war.
That's pretty much right up that. That's pretty much honestly the same thing. Nuclear warfare, parental warfare. That's
a perfect segue.
That's perfect. That's great.
That's where I wanted to go with this. I'm obviously an expert at this. Well, welcome back. It's been a long time since you were on.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
No, thanks for coming. Yeah. I really respect your opinions a lot in pretty much everything: finance, business, parenting, world politics. Obviously,
I should be able to change some of that with this interview.
Yeah. So
your respect, I mean.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yes. Yep.
A little precursor.
Yep.
What's going on in life lately? I mean, that's probably just the best way to get into it.
No, we're in the thick of it. I was joking with my wife the other day that I'm going to write a book called Diapers to Dating, because we're like I still got kids in diapers, and the older ones are getting up into the upper teenage years where that's going on. So
and nobody. I told that to my wife today, and because you had kind of thought about like that would be a cool thing to say. I was like, oh man, he actually has a child that like they're parenting in diapers, and a child they're parenting that's going into dating. I was like,
yep.
So what's that about? You got 6 kids, man.
Yeah, it's great. I've got both ends of the spectrum, and it was not what I had anticipated, but Shay, my wife, obviously, really caught on to the family thing and embraced it, and made it kind of our identity to some degree, family. And so we had our first few kids, and then she had an injury kind of resulting from one of the births, and then there was a little bit of a stretch where she was kind of trying to figure some stuff out medically, and then we went right back into it and ended up with 3 more. So we kind of got 3 olders and 3 youngers, and it's neat to see some of the dynamics. It's tough, some of the dynamics. I mean, teenagers want to be up late and hang out, and my youngest Isaac, like he's up at 6. 6:15 about every morning.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So you're a morning person, and no matter what.
I'm a morning person by default. Yeah, and just trying to balance some of the workload, with Shay, because she's home with the kids, homeschooling, all school season, and then even just in the summer, just being home. So trying to take some of the load off of her, So I've been hanging out with Isaac in the mornings, and I'm so frustrated at 6:00 when he's up there yelling, "Mama, yeah," in his crib, and I walk up and I turn the light on, and I'm barely awake, and then flip the light on, and he just has the biggest smile, and it's like, I came up here to be ticked at you, and now I can't even do that because you're so stinking
so you're
cute.
Double ticked.
Yes. I will be ticked later.
Yeah, I do that with my girls all the time. Like, if you do that one more time, my goodness, why are you looking at me like that? Stop doing that.
Yep. But it's all good. Parenting is not about, well, it's not. It's a third about, training your kids, and then it's 2/3 about training yourself and, becoming a better person just through the trials and the fires of parenting and just all the dynamics. And Shane and I were talking that if we would have only had our first 3 kids, we would have way less rounded advice because our first 3 kids were fairly compliant. And we thought we were great parents. Like, it was just like, this is easy. All you do is be consistent and you just do what you need to do and blah, blah, blah. It's like, then we had our next 3 and it was surprise. Oh yeah, by the way, you were just lucky with your first 3 kids that you were able to have those personalities that were easier to deal with. And so our next 3 were just more, I don't know if we're a little older, we're a little more tired, it's a little more challenging, but also like the personalities were stronger. And so that just kind of kicked us right in the teeth and like, oh, no, that's where we went through a change, in ourselves. And if you don't allow, well, the parenting is going to change you, and you really need to focus on letting it change you for the better. Otherwise, you're going to end up, sour, decrepit, bitter person, and or disconnected.
You see that a lot. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to look very far to see that.
No.
And it's tragic to see.
Yeah, and I understand it. Like, parenting is so hard. Like, it's to parent well. Like, yeah, I can throw an iPad in front of my kids, and I see it all day long. You go into a store, you go into a restaurant. And I'm not here to judge anybody. You do what you got to do or what you think is right. But, like, flop a kid down, and then they pull out all 3 iPads and hand it to their 3 kids. And the 3 kids sit there, like, so well-behaved,
Yeah.
And so it's kind of I guess it's the long game a little bit, when you're trying not to use those tools, because I don't feel like it's healthy. Is there a time for it? Sure, yeah. We put movies on for our kids too. I'm not saying we don't ever do that, but if that's our default go-to for parenting when we're having issues, not a great plan. I don't think so.
I like what you said about if it's going to change you, then the work that you have to do is make sure it changes you for the better.
Yeah.
It is hard work.
Yeah.
It gets tough. You're sleep deprived. Your patience will be tested on a daily basis. And then all the dynamics of personality and temperament and your schedule and what you have to do for the day, and unbelievably complex.
Yeah. Like, our culture is so busy, and it really doesn't bode well for a family dynamic of togetherness and taking time to work through all those issues and, making sure you're keeping your priorities straight. Like, it's when you have the time to do that stuff is usually when you want to be doing something. And so, like, I'm not by nature humble. Like, humility is hard for me. And so I really have to work hard to make sure that I'm portraying humility so that I can see the benefits of it. Because one thing we've been talking to our kids is, what do you want the outcome to be? Like, if they're arguing, what is your goal? Or if they're fighting, is your goal to make the situation better, or is your goal to make the situation worse? Because what you're doing right now is making the situation worse with your reaction. So if that's your goal, continue on. Keep doing what you're doing, and this will continue to escalate, and it's going to get worse, and then we're going to end up with nuclear, warfare in our home.
In your house.
In your house. But if your goal is to literally make things better, which will be better for everybody, it's not just going to be better for the other person. It's going to be better for you too. Taking turns and being selfless is the better outcome for everybody. That's where you want to end up, is with a better situation. So I feel like God kind of is looking at me when I'm saying that to my kids, and he's like, well, Tyson, what outcome do you want? Do you want a good outcome, or do you want a bad outcome? And I'm like, right now I want a bad outcome. Yeah. I don't care. No, but so be humble, put your pride aside for a minute, go and apologize and make things right, even if you feel it was justified or whatever. And so every personality is different too. I've got kids that you look at them cross-eyed and they are just repentant and sorry. And then I've got kids like you can hound them for 6 hours and like they just continue to double down, and that's exaggerating. It's not that bad, but you do see the differences, and you can't parent every kid the same way. Which I guess is probably why there's no handbook for parenting, right? Because every kid's a little different. But no, overall it's good. It's neat to see the kids progress through their ages, and they're growing up more and more. I'm seeing different things with my younger kids coming up through the stages that I kind of didn't pay attention to the first time around, to some degree. Like, it was all new. And so it was like, oh yeah, I'll have to go back on our home videos and see what that was like. But now I get to kind of relive some of that. Like Hannah is coming into, the age, she'll be 15 here soon, I guess, which is crazy. But just seeing how she processes information, and she has a heart of gold, and she is just like her heart is so pure, and like she just thrives in. It comes out differently, depending on the situation, but she is a defender of the weak and a defender of the unjust. And it's neat to see, because I was never like that growing up at all. And I don't know, I probably didn't even think about things enough to have that. But she confronted me on something one night, and I got so defensive. I was like, my kid calling me out, but she was like right on, and so, I kind of doubled down for a little bit, and I got upset, and then, I had to go back and be like, this is great. I got two consciences, I've got my own, and I've got my daughter. Yes.
You never thought you'd have your kids to be able to parent you.
Right. But, I think we talked last time about how, kids are a mirror kind of, of you. And so
your inadequacies and your, strengths.
Strengths and your flaws all come out. Yep. And so it's just neat to see her develop into that. And she's got kind of an entrepreneurial, that's not the right word, entrepreneurialistic spirit in her too. And so just the way she processes information, it's neat. And so we'll see. My boys they're boys, and so they're a little bit more laid back when it comes to certain things. And then other things, they're really, they'll get hyped up about something, And so it's a challenge. It's again, both ends of the spectrum. And so at the beginning of the day, I'm dealing with a kid trying to wrestle me so that he doesn't have to have his diaper changed, and then at the end of the day, we're talking about, trips and summer jobs and boys and whatever else, so it's just like, it's interesting. I don't know if we would have only had 3 kids, it's just interesting how much of a different dynamic it would have been.
Mm-hmm. And how much of parenting you wouldn't have known was a thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm by no means an expert on anything. And so I can tell you a lot of stuff not to do. But if we'd have had our first 3 kids and that would have been it, like, I can't even imagine how, blown up my head would be on parenting, and so, it's good. It's humbled me. It's humbling me every day. Daily, just working through stuff. And so, yeah. What are you've got 2 littles. What are your biggest challenges daily with parenting?
This is my show. I ask the questions.
Okay, you ask it then.
I have 2 little girls. Yes. Struggles. Our 3.5-year-old is like pretty independent, I would say.
Yeah.
Just something from a 3.5-year-old,
yeah.
But no, I think the hardest thing on a more macro scale is patience and diligence to carry out what we feel discipline looks like, and being on the same page with that.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. My biggest thing, if I could go back by far, would be supporting Shay no matter what the circumstance was with the kids, because I tend to take the middle ground or, one of the kids' side, and it's been kind of a disaster, and what that's produced.
Just not being on the same page with that stuff, you mean?
Yeah, just not, we're on the same page with what we want our outcomes and our goals to be. But just when, I've not supported Shay when there's been an issue between her and one of the kids, and so it makes, then it, that tears her down and makes her feel completely vulnerable and unsupported. So then she feels like she kind of has to fight twice as hard or against 2 people. And so that's something that I'm trying to correct, but it's also, it's really difficult for me. I can't seem to get a handle on it very well.
Yeah.
So, and then for my personality, if I'm not doing one aspect of my life, if there's one aspect of my life that's out of whack, I just tend to throw the whole thing away.
Kind of spirals quick.
Yeah. Yep. And then I don't feel like anything I have to say is useful, or I feel like that hindrance really puts a barrier between me and anything else that I want to do, or do positive. So working through that stuff, again, just something that the Lord needs to sand down a little bit and clean up. And thankfully there's grace. My wife is super, forgiving, and we move on. And but yeah, sometimes it feels like you keep banging your head against the wall, on an issue.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Like, I think as far as like we're concerned, it's just staying true to what we've decided we're going to do, and then do that and carry it out. Yeah. Like if we give an instruction and it's not followed, it has to be followed up with a correction.
Yeah.
And you can't threaten the correction and not have the correction come, because then kids are so quick to realize like, oh, I guess that didn't really matter then.
Yeah.
Don't throw that toy.
Yeah.
Throws the toy again. I do nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, wasn't serious. Like,
yeah.
And that is a full-time job in and of itself. It's unbelievable how intentional you have to be. Oh my goodness. Yes. You let something go. You could work at something for a month and be like, oh man, we're seeing some good progress. And then let it go for like a few days because it was going good.
Yeah.
And then right back to square one.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yep. consistency is like one of the most important. And the thing is, you got to be careful. Like, okay, how many rules do you really want to have to enforce? You know what I'm saying? And so, like, if you're going to have 150 rules that you have to be consistent on,
it's exhausting.
Good luck.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, are we going to make it a rule, you know, that our kids can't come in the house with their shoes on, or, you know, whatever. Like, we're going to pick and choose our battles to some degree. We're going to keep them safe. You know, we're going to keep them healthy.
Yeah.
You can't eat ice cream, you know, for supper, breakfast, and lunch, you know.
Yeah.
But as soon as you let your guard down, yeah, they do really
They
sense
are
that.
psychoanalyzers.
Yeah.
3-year-old psychoanalyzer.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
They know your tone, your inflection. They know when you're being serious, when you're not.
Yep.
And like, if you promise something to, and you don't follow through on it,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
I don't know. That's probably the thing that is the hardest for me, aside from not sleeping sometimes, is just like, Stephanie and I have to be on the exact same page with something, because like, hey, if we're going to be intentional about this, then we have to address it now, and it has to be all the time, and try not to miss those steps. But I totally hear what you're saying. Like, if you have a million different rules, well, you're human. Like, it's not feasible to keep track of all of those and be consistent and as intentional as you want to be with those rules.
Yeah.
Like, it does take some common sense.
Yeah. And that's where, like, a lot of times I think when in families, like, you know, you start out parenting your oldest kid or two kids a certain way, and you're like, yep, I'm going to do this for everybody. And then, by the, you know, you're a few years in, you're like, that was not a good idea. We should have really done that different.
Yeah.
And then you kind of end up, you know, making some adjustments. Yeah. And you know, that's why typically the older kids versus the younger kids always have two different lives,
of
you know,
childhood.
memories, right?
Yeah.
But we've done, you know, on the important stuff, we've stayed really, I think, pretty consistent. I think we've raised all of our children. Again, there's a lot of them that are still young, but we haven't changed our mindset too much. We've grown, we've learned, we have adjusted. Absolutely. Our mindset has changed on certain things, for sure, 1,000%. But we also realized, like, we were not as consistent as we should have been with certain things. And you're absolutely right. They know, like, it only takes one time, and they're like, oh, perfect. That's the boundary. I thought the boundary was here. It's not. The boundary's way over there in the middle of the road. Like, that's the boundary line now, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's super tricky, because I want my kids' hearts. You know, I want them to know I'm for them, and my goal is for them to have a fulfilled, peace-filled, joyful life, you know. And when you put boundaries up, it's hard to put boundaries up. Like, I want to give my kid ice cream anytime he wants it, but that's not good for the kid, right?
Right.
We have apple trees that we're trying to grow, and also have deer that we are trying not to grow.
They're taking all your apples.
Yes. And so we have put fencing around those trees to keep the deer away. And that's what I've explained to my kids, is like, this is why we put boundaries up for you, because you are not at the point of maturity where you can handle a deer coming and lopping off all your branches. It's not because we're trying to restrict you. That's not our goal. Our goal is to allow you to flourish until you're at the point where we can obviously remove boundaries. And like, for our older kids, we remove a bunch of boundaries that you put on little kids, right? Like, my little guy, Isaac, like, terrorist in training, you know, kind of. He is so crazy. I mean, my poor wife, I don't know how she hasn't, like, committed herself into an institution. Yeah, because he literally, and it's getting a little better. Like, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but, like, the tunnel's still, like, a long ways away. But you have to know where he is every second. And I used to judge the parents of those types of kids. And I was like, oh yeah, if you just trained them better, you know, if you just were more consistent with your discipline. They would
sit next to you. Yeah.
Like, so all that judgment's getting probably heaped back on me now. Or, you know,
funny how that happens.
Yeah. But he is just so energetic and loves to explore and climb on top of the piano. And I mean, I remember one time one of my girls, or maybe Shay, was making a bowl of popcorn. So we had a big popcorn bowl. And so we have little bowls that have popcorn in it. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I'm like 98% sure that this was his motivation. He took the bowl of popcorn, the little bowl that had popcorn in it, and he threw it on the floor. Okay, whatever. Little kids throw things. You know, he's probably 2 years old. That's fine. We go to clean up the little bowl of popcorn, and guess what he does with the big bowl of popcorn? Oh, yeah, he starts flinging it all over the place. Like, that little bowl of popcorn was a distraction. It was like, hey, look over here, what I'm doing over here. And then wham.
2 years old.
Yeah. And so
this is why I do anybody who is like, oh, they're just kids, like they're not actually being mischievous. I'm like, that's all they do.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's the motivation.
Like,
you're ironing out all the edges of the mischievous nature, and they're way smarter than we give them credit. Way smarter.
People who make the argument that, you know, oh, humans are basically good deep down at their core, and like, you know, evil's taught.
Never had
like,
kids.
Yeah, you've never been around kids or humans in general, but like especially, right. You know. And so, but he is, you know, and again, so that's an extreme part of his personality, but also he will smile at you and melt your heart at any second, you know. Right. Ethan was kind of the same way. He was a little more kind of defiant in the beginning, and so strong personality, and he would, you know, so he'd be the one to cross his arms and, you know, I'm not going to do that and whatever. And, you know, so we worked with him, or Shay worked with him probably more than me, but, and so now he's like the buddiest buddy, you know. Aubrey's a lot like Olivia, just a flamboyant personality, and kind of, you know, everything is dramatic or, you know, a show or whatever. But she's got, you know, she's kind of the same way. Like, she's a caretaker. She's a lover, kind of, you know, she just, kind of always has a mischievous smile on her, but like, you know, she just wants attention. She just wants you to love on her. And so, yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing too that you see all the time is, empty promises for discipline. Like, okay, I guess then we're going home, you know, or you hear that all the time. You know, if you do that one more time, then we're leaving. And then they do it one more time and you don't leave. Like, if you're going to make a promise like that, like, you have to be following through on it.
Yeah.
Which is so I guess if you don't want to leave, then don't make that promise. You know, take them to another room and deal with it that way.
Yeah.
But
I was never a good enough parent to actually follow through, so I just kept saying stuff.
Right. Okay, then we're gonna leave in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean 4 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
I know. So that's
tough. You don't know.
Like,
you don't know what you don't know either. Like, I see young parents, you know, handling situations a certain way, and, you know, I've learned, like, just keep your mouth shut. Like, nobody wants to hear what you have to say, you know, really, in the moment. You know, if they come to you and they beg you, you know, for advice, like, yeah, then you can say something. But, and so you just kind of sit back and observe and watch and, you know, try to offer some help or whatever when you can. But, yeah there's those are tough things, because you don't, like, parents don't know. Like, that stuff was not handed down, I don't think, from generations, like parenting advice. And again, nobody wants parenting advice, really.
Right.
You know, like, if you want parenting advice, you can go get as much as you want, but you don't want to hear what you probably need to hear most of the time.
That's mostly always true.
Yeah, exactly.
The truth hurts.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and we've done that. Like, we've done the, okay, well, we're gonna go if you don't behave, and then, like, not followed through on it. So, like, that's from experience. And
so hard.
And then they learn right away, like,
Oh,
I don't,
man.
then you're not being serious. And
Yeah.
the downstream effects are like, yeah, then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, good. I got to work on that for the next 3
Yeah.
weeks now.
That's when you can tell your heart is in the right place too, when you don't want to train your children because you know it's going to be hard for them. Like, buddy, you can't go and stay overnight. Like, you lost that privilege, and it's like a super fun thing, or like it's a really big deal. And you can just see, their spirit, being crushed kind of, but they get it then. Like, that's impactful. That will change, the neurons in your brain, the pathways. Like, you know what? Next time I'm not going to do that.
It's money in the bank for later.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not good at that.
You get a
though, for
paycheck,
sure.
and like, if you're going to be putting something away to invest, like, it doesn't always feel good because you don't see the results of it right away.
Yep.
But the dividends are way better because next time that they disobey, or the next time that they hit their sibling or whatever, and you're like, well, I have to take this privilege away now.
Yeah.
And then you have to follow through with that.
Yep.
That's a good way to learn a lesson.
Yeah. We do, with our older kids, kind of like one of the things we tried to use is like earlier bedtimes, and it's so hard because those are the times when the littler kids have gone to bed.
And you get to have time with them.
Yeah, we get to have time with them. So to send one of them up to bed early when we're playing a card game or we're watching a Yankees game or something, or whatever we're doing, it's so painful, and you just want to say, oh, no, it's okay. Never mind. You seem like you've learned your lesson. That's close enough,
Yeah.
And it's really not. Like, the follow through is important. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at following through with that stuff. But when it's done, when we've done it correctly, it's, it yields huge results. Because if kids know you're serious, like, if they know every single time they do X, Y, Z, they're going to get a consequence, whatever it is. If they just know, like, then they're going to make a choice. Okay, is this decision worth the consequence?
Yeah.
But most of the time, they're rolling the dice, and it's a loaded set of dice because they know you're not going to follow through. And so they have pretty good odds that they're going to get the outcome that they want, and there's not going to be any consequences.
Yeah.
So, again,
that's been a hard realization too. Like, we've pulled back some of our quote unquote rules because there's definitely a balance of like wanting to enjoy them while they're young and have them enjoy things that aren't so rigid. Like I want Sienna and Giada to think about growing up and how they want to parent their kids someday, and not just be thinking about rules and constant structure. And like, sometimes it's okay for them just to be kids.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's okay for, whatever. And I think coming back to your point is sitting down with them and talking that through with them from early on and saying, look, I'm giving you two decisions. You can pick a good decision or you can pick a bad decision. Here's your options. And then you're going to bear the consequences of that one way or the other is really good. And last time you were on, you made a correlation between the word discipline and how it actually means to disciple your children versus what I guess culture would call discipline.
Punishment.
Yeah, you'd think punishment versus...
and when you think of discipline, you think of... and from a parenting perspective, I think of punishment.
Right. Yeah. And so is it just the intention behind the action? Yeah,
I think that to train your children... So, like, when you're training, it's interesting. When you're training your children... Training is not the real thing. Training is like practice. So for Little League, we have practices. We have training. That's not the real thing. So in parenting, we don't do a lot of training. We often try to practice in the middle of a game or train in the middle of a game. We try to train our kids in the middle of the situation that we want them to to have a successful outcome in. And so one thing that we've done is like, and Shay and I have both done this. She's done it specifically more just because she's with them typically more. But like, we have literally gone for drives with nowhere to go, with the intention of training our kids to sit quietly in the vehicle and not fight with each other. 6 kids, they're all in 2 rows, right? And there is no combination of kids where somebody is not going to be fighting with another kid. We would have to have we'd have to have 6 rows, and then you'd probably have to have spaces between the rows too anyway, right?
Just for harmony's sake.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, we'd still find something to fight about, I'm sure. But, when you're in close proximity to somebody, like, something's going to happen. That's not anything about my kids specifically, obviously. That's just the way it is. And so we would go for a drive, and then we would drive until kind of something would happen, and we would pull the vehicle over and address it, address the issue. But you can't do that when you are on your way to the game or to the event, to the birthday party. Like, you don't have time.
Right.
I suppose if you built enough margin into your departure, you could do that, on the way. But the goal is to be prepared for the game. The goal is to be prepared for the time when you're going on vacation and you kind of have a deadline. Like, hey, we have to get here by this time. And we can't pull the vehicle over every 20 minutes, to have a 15-minute discussion. And so that is what I would call training or disciplining, disciplining your children. It's not always like punishment. I hate the word punishment. I don't feel like we should ever punish our children. Like, if we have to punish our children, I don't know, it seems harsh. It doesn't seem like the right heart is behind that. I want my children to be trained and to be discipled. And is that going to involve some kind of a correction or a consequence? Yeah, that's how it works. That's how you change behavior, is you do something that will actually cause you to not do the same thing next time, right? I mean, that's why we have laws in the country, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's really, we don't do it enough, the training thing, practicing behaving. Like, let's practice behaving. I hate to pick on Isaac again, but like, he will walk by me and I'll need to change his diaper. We'll use that example again. And I'll say, Isaac, come here. And he will literally just keep walking. Like, nah, I didn't hear you. And he'll go into the other room. He might even turn and look at me and smile and then like take a step back just to see what I'm going to do or whatever, So we go through our deal like, hey, buddy, you heard me call you. And so we go through the whole thing. But then what we will do is I'll say, okay, let's practice obeying. So I will say, I want you to go over there and then walk by me, and I'm going to call your name. So he'll walk by, and I'll say, Isaac, come here. And he'll obey immediately, because he knows, like, we're just practicing. I don't know if it's a game to him or what. And so I know you can do it. I know you're capable of it. And we'll encourage him. And, yes, that's what we want to see. Because sometimes kids, they know what not to do maybe, but they don't know what to do to some degree. And so if you can show them, like, no, here's the reaction that I want when I tell you we're having, leftovers for supper. So what we're going to do, and I would gather everybody around. I'll be like, all right, here's the deal, kids. Tonight is leftover night. And now, like, leftover night at our house is still, like, Shade cooks like crazy, and it's, like, nice. We have, like, 14 different options, and it's like a smorgasbord. So leftovers is a very loose term.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, you betcha, anytime. But the kids still don't like it. I think if Shay would call it smorgasbord, they'd be like, "Oh, cool, what's smorgasbord?" And they'd look at it and be like, "Look at all this food."
Yeah, buffet night.
Buffet night. But because we call it leftovers, it's like
right.
an evil connotation or something. But so we'll gather everybody around, and we'll say, "All right, here's what we're going to do. We are going to practice having a good attitude about leftovers." And so we'll gather them around, and we'll have one of the kids say, "Hey, what's for supper?" And we'll say it's leftovers. Okay, now what should you guys react to? And they, they're like, "Yeah, okay, great, thanks, Mom, for working hard," and blah blah blah. And so
a couple of them are like, "Great,
yeah. Well, and you know what? Sometimes the heart comes after the behavior, I guess, which is probably backwards, but. Yeah. But they're just so used to probably seeing me and my negative attitude toward things, and they've seen that so often that that is the normal response to them. Mm-hmm. So you have to actually show them, like, no, here's the response that you need to have. And I don't know that we've ever specifically done the leftover thing. That was more of an example. Sure. But just helping kids understand, here's the response that we're looking for, and sitting down and talking it over with them. And it takes so much time. Mm-hmm. I'm not one to just start spanking kids and whatever. Like it's kind of a last resort, and it's more like, let's see if we can work through this, and deal with this from a heart perspective. It takes time. Like, some kids are not ready to have a heart-to-heart talk when they're upset for it could be an hour, you know? Mm-hmm. And so, and then you've got to remember, you've got to go back and remember, we still have to deal with this issue, right? Because if you just let it go, that's not going to help anything either, right?
It makes it worse usually.
Yeah.
It metastasizes into something else.
Yeah.
The thing that you said was like time. And I think there's one thing to say, like, oh, I don't know these practices, and I'm not, as a parent. Yeah. I've never seen these borne out. I don't know what it looks like. Yeah. But then once you do know what it looks like, or all of these things that you're describing, it takes a considerable amount of effort. Yeah. And like focus. Yeah. And just deciding that this is going to be the way that you get to that, end result that you want. Mm-hmm. And it could mean working for an hour or 2 hours on one behavior, about one incident, and I mean, I don't know how you do it with 6, but with 2, like, basically our 1.5-year-old's basically just a little ball of joy at this point. She doesn't even know how to be mean. Good. But like, constantly, it's always like, if we put in the hard work right now, it's gonna pay off. Yeah. If we don't just let this go, and we go ahead and really work at this, it's gonna pay off. Yeah. So
and I don't want to make it sound like the only thing we do is train our kids. Like, that's not true. We have a good time. We have a lot of fun together. We get to do things as a family. So it's not. I'm probably portraying it a little bit extreme, but it does take, like, dying to yourself. Like, 6 kids is no joke. It takes a whole different mindset. And you know what? Maybe in 20 years I'll look back and I'll be like, yeah, that's because we were doing it, upside down or something or whatever. But it really is about laying down our lives for a season and helping these kids get a good start and a good foundation. Mm-hmm. And Are we extreme with that? Are we overboard with how much time and effort we put into that? Can it be done a lot easier? Probably. I think we've made some mistakes that have made it harder on ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'll speak for me. I won't speak for my wife. You can have her on and get her perspective sometime. But not being consistent, not following through, and then just not being a selfless person in general, like trying to fight against my time versus
Right.
that time that I need to just stop, put my agenda down, it's the ninth inning, but we need to really address this or whatever it is. Or,
Sure.
There's things that I held on to for too long, tried to do, both things, and it just didn't work. And that was fine. And I've found more fulfillment now anyway in what I'm doing too. I think in our culture, we have this idea that serving ourselves is what brings the most pleasure out of life or the most fulfillment. And it's not.
It's the opposite.
It is. It's kind of the upside down kingdom. The last shall be first, and the servants are actually the leaders. And you actually, if you want to live a fulfilled life, pleasure seeking is not going to do it. I think we've seen that I don't think there's too many people that would argue with that if you go out, if you take 2 hours and go out and do a good deed for someone else who really needs it, like legitimately go and help somebody, go pay for somebody's groceries, go rake somebody's yard, go shovel an old lady's driveway. We don't do that in our culture anymore, really. We have programs, we have organizations, we have resources that a lot of that need is not there. And so, but going out and doing something for somebody will give you one of the best feelings you can come up with, And so serving our kids for this time to try to get them a good start, to me is a worthy goal. And is it hard? Yeah. Most things that are worth doing are hard, I think.
There was a Pew Research study in 2023. This is 90% of U.S. parents say parenting is enjoyable most or all of the time, but 66% say it's also exhausting most or all of the time.
Yeah. Is it enjoyable 90% of the time? Yeah, that's interesting. I would not have thought people, I just don't see, I don't know, I see a lot of parents that their kids are an inconvenience kind of, or they're a tag along. But that's encouraging to hear that, because maybe that's just what life looks like from the outside. Probably my life looks like a wreck from the outside too, for sure. So that's interesting. Yeah. Yep.
In that same research paper, 57% of parents say being a parent is the most important part of their identity, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
I wonder how that breaks down by fathers and mothers. I'd be interested to know that. Because certainly for mothers, it would be...
Yeah, I would say for mothers, it
has to be higher than that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that you want parenting to be your highest identity.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if that's from a secular point of view, or, I mean, if that's your identity, that's fine until your kids are grown
and gone. And then what?
And then you're left with your entire identity being I would think, setting a spiritual perspective aside, you would want your spouse to be and maybe identity is not the right word, but priority.
Yeah.
But even that, I know when things are not, my hardest days are when Shay and I are not doing well, when we're in a fight or when we're having a bad day.
Right.
Those are my hardest days.
Are those her hardest days too, you think?
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to ask her. I'm not sure. I would, I mean,
I would think for me and my wife, it's
yeah.
Like when we're not on the same page,
Yeah.
we're not connecting. Like the day just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
But like
I'm not trying to be ignorant. I'm
yeah.
just not wanting to speak for her, I guess, and you know what her. But for me, it's amazing. It's like somebody. If my energy was in a 5-gallon pail when Shay and I are in an argument, it's like somebody took that energy and dumped it out of the pail. Like I am wiped out. I feel exhausted and tired. It's like I'm running on a high on our relationship. And then when there's a bump in that road, it's like, and you know, that's not great either, obviously. But
when you're like, if you and her are on the same page, and I feel this way with my wife too, like if we're on the same page, but the kids are hard, like that's something that we can get through.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And actually, when something's hard and we're on the same page, like, oh, this is kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
Like we're in it together. We're going to be fine.
Absolutely.
We'll deal with it.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's encouraging to hear because I absolutely feel the same way. Like my house could be burning down, and as long as my kids are safe and my wife and I are on the same page, like whatever,
It's just a house.
We'll get through it.
Right.
You know. But yeah, when everything else is going perfectly, but there's an issue between the two of us, it's like, oh man, it's like dragging my feet through mud to even walk or get.
Yeah.
And we resolve things. You know, we've never really left anything unresolved. Is there sometimes stings, you know, left over for a few days or yeah, absolutely. Does it take us sometimes? I mean, she doesn't really let me go to sleep without working it out. So we have a lot of late night. We don't have a lot. When we have an issue, we have late night talks. And then, you know, once I kind of can, you know, realize my part in it and be humble, and we can get back on the same page, you know, it's good. But we don't let things go. Yeah, we don't let things go. That's kind of a period at the end of that sentence, I guess. So,
Right.
And by we, I mean she doesn't let us let things go, which is good. Like that's healthy. I don't think anybody would argue with that. And so I'm grateful to her for, you know, keeping our relationship on the right track, you know, by doing that. Because I'm a let things go person, probably. I'd be like, yeah. You know, I can fall asleep in the middle of an argument. Like,
Yeah, you're like my wife. That's the most annoying thing on planet Earth.
Yeah, okay. So you're the opposite, huh?
Yeah, I'm the opposite of that. I'm like, it should be like, we'll talk about it later. I'm like, it's like tearing me up inside.
Yeah, that's funny. Yep, that's funny.
I think it would be nice to know if anybody is the same way. But the truth is like we do know that at the end of the day, like we'll work it out and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But like in the moment, I'm like a work it out now, and she's like a cool off and work it out later.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's been a fun 5 years.
Yeah.
But
well,
learning to
that's
navigate
good
it.
though, because I don't think everybody has that perspective of like, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
And if you keep letting things go, like eventually you not working through it is going to become, you know, it's going to end, you know, with catastrophe.
Yeah. And like the truth is it's only from my perspective, it's only because like this is silly, this is dumb, this argument's stupid because like we love each other, it's going to be fine, we're going to get through it and we'll just move on. I'd rather just move on quick. Like I'd rather just forget about it, move on with life. Everything like you said before, then there's no discontent and there's no disruption in harmony between us.
Yeah.
And she's more like calm down and then deal with it tomorrow. Well, the truth is that most of the time when we have that little bit of pause, like we both kind of just bring it down like,
Yeah.
like how dumb is that? Like what are we doing? Like let's not do that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just not do that.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah.
But Shay is my biggest cheerleader and supporter. She's the reason, you know, that our family is structured the way it is and as strong as it is. She's the main reason we started our own business. She's the kind of the person who, when I have her support, yeah, I kind of feel like $1,000,000, so it's good. It's good thing to have in a spouse for sure. So,
Yep, definitely.
yeah. Yep.
Let's you spoke about your business there.
Yeah.
What just to move towards that part of your life, because it's pretty significant. You're a very successful business owner. For anybody who doesn't know that,
Depends on what you define as successful, I guess. But
I guess that's fair. That's pretty true. How important is a spouse's support in starting a business?
yeah, I mean, so I guess there would be two different kinds of support. There would be like, I'm not going to stop you, so do what you're going to do. And then there's support like, no, this is what you should do. You can do it. It'll be fine. Here's a different perspective you need to have. And I'm not terribly like driven. Like I'm not a all out go crazy with things personality. I'm fairly laid back, and so I think we talked about being on the same page. Like you absolutely have to be on the same page, no question, because otherwise it's going to drive bitterness and resentment. I would say that would be my my thought on that. But then, I mean, I have a spouse who is constantly giving me, perspective and encouragement. And for me, I think it's very important. Because I have to have somebody at the end of the day that I can come home to and vent to, about whatever problem was that day. And if you have somebody who's like, well, I'm not sure what to tell you, like you were the one that wanted to do this thing. And so being on the same page, I would say, is critical, because at the end of the day, the business is eventually going to fade away, right? And so what do you want to be left with? Your relationships are much more important than the business itself. So yeah, I would say it's paramount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you have to pick the relationship over the business.
Yep.
For sure. For our business that we've built, I mean, I've kind of, I kind of joke with every employee that I hire. Anytime we add a new person on, or replace a person, I kind of joke that like the reason I'm hiring you is so that I can do less work, and so my goal was never to build like an empire or, anything like that. Like, mm-hmm. I don't want to be 65 and working 70 hours a week. Like, that's not my goal. And so I've always said I would gladly trade income for time, and so we kind of started our business right from the very beginning. Now, early on, like, we needed to make money. And so we hired people to help us make money. Mm-hmm. I wasn't looking to cut back my hours the first 5 or 6, 8, 10 years, whatever. And so that maybe wasn't my immediate goal right away. But, in the end, I'm happy to give up responsibility and, I don't know if ownership is the right word, but decision-making ability for relieving myself of responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Am I great at that? No, I'm too much of a micromanager. We're in a business that is very constantly evolving and requiring fresh ideas and insight and training and keeping up with things, and so it is a constant barrage kind of. So I will probably always have that. Like, I don't know that I'll ever not be involved at all, unless if my kids come along or something and they're interested in the business, then, possibly I could take a back role to that. But yeah, I don't even remember what the question was, but our goal is we need income, and looking down the road, my goal is to have more time and to have that for my employees too. We want to create a work environment
Right.
where our employees are our top priority, even over customers. And I think we've done that. Have we done it perfectly? No, but we've tried to do it. That's been our heart the whole time. So
What does that look like? What does an employee first mentality look like in a company?
So early on, if I get lost, just remind me of the question. I have a direction I'm going here, but early on when we were in business, when we had started, I don't know, I was probably struggling with something, and I very, very clearly felt the Lord speak to me. You take care of the employees and I'll take care of the finances, or the numbers is what I call it. And so I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. I love, it drives me nuts when, the year before was better than the year that we're in now, right? And so
Right.
I always like to see an increase in sales, or an increase in car count, or an increase in whatever, right? I'm always trying to go in an upward direction. And I felt like that was getting in the way of my relationship with some of the employees. And so I would get frustrated at things that
That would affect profitability.
I would get frustrated because we weren't hitting certain numbers, or I wasn't getting a certain behavior out of an employee or whatever. And because I wanted to increase revenue and such. And so when the Lord spoke that to me, and I go back to it all the time, and I have to remember that, because I get distracted. Mm-hmm. I get going down the wrong path almost daily. It's a constant fight, right? To keep that mentality. But at the end of the day, we need to make some money to make ends meet, but also we can do that another way if we need to. But the business is kind of an avenue to getting into people's lives. One of my favorite things to do, and I wish I could do it more, would be just to sit in our waiting room, when people come in, and just chat with them and love on them, and just hang out and see how their day's going. And, because life's hard, right? Mm-hmm. Life will kick you around if you're not careful.
Right.
And, so if you cannot worry about the numbers, you can really focus on, this employee's having a rough day. They, had an argument with their spouse, or, they crashed their car, or they were sick last week, or they have a medical issue, or, their snowblower broke down, whatever, think of a scenario. And if you can stop and take 10, 15 minutes and not get work done, but focus on them, that is going to show them that that's what an employee first business looks like, I guess. Is there balance to that? I mean, the Lord told me he was going to take care of the numbers, so I kind of give that up, and then I take it back. I'm like, okay, God, you're not really, your numbers are slipping a little bit here. I'm going to help you out. Then I start getting on a kick and getting on my employees or something. But
right.
I just, that's kind of now we're personally, we have very little for financial needs. We're debt free. We don't have an extremely luxurious lifestyle. We drive older vehicles. We we live in a farm. It's a nice farmhouse, and we built an addition, and we have some land. And no, you're good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining at all, but like, I don't need to make $10 million a year to be content either. And so that has helped also. We started our business debt-free in the beginning. Like, we started out renting, one bay, and bought a bunch of equipment. Shay had a business making and selling handbags and wallets and stuff. And she paid off, I think, all of, I don't know if it was mine or her school loans, but paid off a bunch of debt. And then we were saving up for a down payment on a house. And then kind of this opportunity came up. And so we had a little bit of a cushion to start the business with, which was super. And then we kind of never looked back. It just kind of grew from there. We did end up with some debt, and we did some building stuff and whatever. But initially, just not having the financial burden right away was super helpful. And I don't know, it's tricky because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, you just have an employee first business and it's, blah, blah. It's just, that's what you do and whatever, because I realize like that it has worked out well for us. Yeah. And that is that's due in large parts to the employees and the staff that we have. Like, we have a pretty low turnover. Yeah. Like, we get an employee and they usually stick around unless there's some other circumstances. And we've had employees come and go. I'm not saying they don't, but like the reasons that they leave are outside of my control to some degree. Okay. Like, it's not because of the environment. It's not because of the morale. It's not because they're not cared for. They feel used. So,
right.
Yeah, that's some of the stuff that it looks like.
Some of what you were talking about is kind of, how you can make your employees feel valued and feel worth in what they're doing, and kind of encourage them to encourage their autonomy while fighting your own inclination for micromanaging. It's got to be difficult.
Yeah.
Because people in an environment that want to stay in an environment are going to feel those things. They're going to feel valued. They're going to feel like they bring something to the table, and they're seen for that. Kerry Herbine, who's now CEO in Kentucky, he spoke on the podcast here, like episode, let's see, what episode was that? 4?
Yeah.
And one of his axioms that he quoted was, don't control results, influence thinking.
Don't control results, influence thinking. Yep.
From a leadership perspective.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that if you want a business that's going to run on its own to some degree, that's your only option. If you're always the one coming up with ideas and you're always the one finding solutions to the problems, then you have if you want to be at your business 50, 60 hours a week, go for it. Like, right. Yeah, could I make an extra bunch of money by replacing a couple employees with myself and doing their job? Like, yeah, I could do that. That sounds horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. But I can go away for a couple weeks, and my manager and the staff around him, like, the shop keeps running, and there's a lot of moving parts. Like, it's not just auto repair. Like, we have an auto repair, and then there's a quick lube, which is really like two different businesses.
Right? Yeah,
it definitely is. I mean, it's all under one roof, but it is two different dynamics. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how different it was until we kind of got into it. And then the car wash is there, and that's a constant. Like, you never know when you wake up in the morning what's going to happen with that, or what's going to break, or what issue is going to come up. And so all that to say, like, my manager and all the staff, my managers, they do a great job, and I've tried to give them, the ability to make those decisions. And so one of the things that comes along with that is that autonomy is sometimes they're going to make a decision that I wouldn't have made necessarily. But if they can see the decisions that I make influencing that thinking, like you were talking about, they're going to know, okay, I think this is how Tyson would have handled that, you know? And so, I mean, they make decisions all day long, you know, that with things. And it's great. It's wonderful. I can take some time. I can step back a little bit. And I think they feel more valued too when I cannot be there. Like, I think they take some pride in the fact that
it's empowering.
Yeah, I can be gone and like things really just kind of keep flowing. And it's kind of a monster to take care of, but they do it well. So, yeah.
Creating a business plan that doesn't involve the owner. What does that look like?
It's easier said.
Shout
out.
You did it.
Then
nice. Done. I'll pay you later.
It's easier said than done. And I think a lot of times business owners want to get to that. Like, they think that's like step 2.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's like step 18. You know, like, you have to build, unless it depends on the amount of income that you want from it, and what your goals are with it. You know, you can create a business that only makes you, a few $1,000s a year, and if you're shelling out, a bunch of it. But to keep good people, you have to be willing to pay good money. That's the biggest thing, because the good people are often already off doing their own thing. And, in a sense, some of my employees do run their own business, sort of, because they're so involved in the day-to-day workings. And so they have the stress already of the ownership in it. But you have to put in some blood, sweat, and tears in the beginning. And I don't really think of myself as an entrepreneur where, in the typical sense, where you're running around starting businesses and then selling them, or starting them and then going on to the next thing. I really just think of myself as a good mechanic who cares about people. That's kind of where I fall on it. And you have to be willing to give up control and money to be able to build a business that will be sustainable without you. You can't be, maybe you can be. In my experience, it's harder if you are a perfectionist. There's some organizations that run really, really super well that are larger without the owner's involvement. But the bigger an organization gets, the more things that fall through the cracks.
Okay.
And so you have to be more on top of your game if you're going to scale things, and I don't have any desire to scale things for the sake of scaling things. Mm-hmm. We're trying to kind of keep up with the work that we have. And so our scaling has kind of been a necessary evil to some degree, from my perspective. But that's the biggest thing. You have to be committed to it. You have to really be a student. You have to want to learn. Business is I usually figured it was about half, roughly, of the actual trade or skill that you were doing. And the other half is expanding your knowledge and creativity or, mindset, to be able to continue with the business in that aspect of growing things. And so when it was just me starting out, I could bill out, I could work on cars about 20 hours a week out of a 40-hour week. And then the other 20 hours was all the nitty-gritty business stuff and whatever. Right. And I was probably a little bit more nerdy with the business stuff than I needed to be to some degree. But if you think you're going to be, you know, a successful mechanic or plumber or, you know, swim school, you know, or whatever, like name the activity, you're going to spend a bunch of the time not doing the thing that you enjoy doing, you know, like I became a mechanic, so I enjoyed fixing cars, you know. I still get to fix cars once in a while, but, you know, that's not what I do now. But I also loved business. So if you hate numbers and you hate the business side of things, like you can hire that out, but again, there's a cost to that.
Yeah, for your own business, you'd probably be better off being an employee for a bigger company or something.
Yeah.
Like if your goal is like, I just want to work on cars, I don't want to do the back end business part of it. People don't see that part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
When you're starting your own business, it's like, you do that and then you do a whole entire CEO owner job.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's lessons you're going to learn. You know, we've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, kind of. We've taken it on the chin a bunch of times, and whether it's actually fixing vehicles, whether that's the obstacle, or dealing with customers, you know, in certain situations, or dealing with employees, or, you know, whatever. There's just so much to learn. So just you have to know ahead of time. You know, like if you want a business that's going to run without you, like you can't plan on swinging the hammer forever or turning the wrench or, you know,
there's not enough hours in the day.
No, there's not, you know, and you're not going to find somebody. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe, if that's what you want to do, you can find, I guess if you can find managers to put them in place to handle all of that stuff, and you can continue to work on cars. Like you could do that. But also then, like, that's the part that brings in the money. Like, so if you want to be done working on cars, you need to be willing to be the one who's doing the managing. Sure. Again, eventually, if you can get the business to scale,
hire yourself back on as a mechanic.
Yeah, eventually, you know, I'm not saying you can't. But in my
that'd be interesting.
In my experience, it's hard enough to find the right people to fill those positions. So yeah,
that would be interesting to be like, oh, my goal actually is to be a mechanic, so that you build your business out, you put the business into somebody else's hands, basically completely. Yeah. You know, and then you just kind of like, I'm just a mechanic now. Even though you're the owner behind this, you know, you're actually the owner.
Yep.
All the business side of it, I don't want to do anymore. I'll just be over here in Bay 3.
Right. Yeah.
Fixing cars. Interesting. Maybe that's a goal.
And you know, if I feel like our business is complicated because of the quick lube and the car wash. And then we manage the storage units next door too. So like there's so many different moving parts.
Right.
If it was just a repair shop, I might have a different perspective on that. I might say, you hire a bookkeeper, you hire a service writer, and then you can go out back and you can just fix cars. And then when you get some debt paid off, when you're financially able to, you can just hire a mechanic and whatever. Like that may be possible, you know. But there's just, we've got enough going on that it seems like an impossibility kind of.
Yeah.
So, but I don't mind it. I mean, it's all part of the game.
So back to creating a business plan that doesn't involve the owner. Jocko Willink has a great quote about leadership. And he says, the goal of a leader should be to work themselves out of a job. This means leaders must be heavily engaged in training and mentoring their junior leaders to prepare them to step up and assume greater responsibilities. That's what you were talking about before.
Yeah.
When mentored and coached properly, the junior leader can eventually replace the senior leader, allowing the senior leader to move on to the next level of leadership.
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of what do they call it? The Peter principle? Where you move people up. I think the Peter principle is actually where you move people out of their calling into a different role, and then they don't end up thriving in that. But continuing to move people up, and we have that we kind of have levels, that people go through. They work in a certain spot for a little while, and then it's like, okay, it's time for the next place. And some people are just happy where they're at, and some people do want to keep moving up. My biggest problem is it's very hard for me to move on from people, like employees. Like, I always have a heart for them, and I always feel like I can fix whatever situation comes up. And so from a business, like if somebody was to write a business manual and look at my business, they'd be like, you should have moved on from this person a long time ago,
right,
or whatever. And I just feel like, well, I'm not here to build what you think is a successful business. That kind of goes back to what we talked about. Yeah. Like, what do you define as successful? Like, I don't know how many employees we have, 8 or 9 or 10, kind of depends on the week. But, and I mean, they are loyal to us because we care for them so deeply. And I think they know that they're cared for. It doesn't mean they won't go somewhere else someday. That's not what I'm saying, but they know they're cared about, and that does come back to you. Is that the right business advice? No, probably the right. What is it? The difference between businesses and successful businesses or something is about, it's not only that the successful businesses get the right people on and off the bus, they get the right people in the right seats. And like, I'm not willing to easily just move on from people. And so I think it's paid dividends though. Like, my employees know that I care about them, and that we're going to do whatever we can to make this work. And if there's something, whatever, if there's something that doesn't work, then that's fine. But let's not let it be, something that we couldn't have worked out.
Right.
So we have a good time. We just we have a great morale right now at the shop, the crew that we have. It's, it's just, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another part of it too, is just creating an environment where people don't hate coming to work.
Yeah.
I've had a couple jobs where I hated going to work. One was because of the people I worked for. I was doing some construction, and the owner I don't know. My perspective, he was just a jerk. He got things done, but, he didn't have the relationship with his employees that, I ever was interested in. And then I've worked at places where just the work was awful. Like, it's just not fun to work. And then you had kind of the whole bureaucracy, baloney, and and all of that. It just didn't make for a fun work environment. So,
right.
I've always told my employees, like, if we're not having fun here, what are we doing? Like, there's a lot easier ways to make money. Yeah. Where you don't have to deal with the idiocy that you end up dealing with when you're in a business like that. So, but
yeah, I love that, because the businesses that you see where the employees are happy, it's most of the time, unless you're doing really fun work. But I can't even imagine really fun work with a terrible boss is any good.
Oh no,
right? So like, if you're training dolphins all day, or like whatever, like, that sounds fun.
Testing roller coasters.
Yeah, or yeah, yeah. Oh, I have to test drive Maseratis all day.
Yeah,
like, a really fun thing with a terrible employer can make it terrible.
Yeah.
Versus a really good group of people with hard work can make the hard work enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's true in all aspects of life. You take any kind of task, splitting wood, or, that's not a good example because I enjoy splitting wood, but yeah, I know, right? Anything. You get a bunch of people together to do it, cleaning up after a disaster or whatever. Like, there's just a sense of community when you do that. And I have a long held belief that it's really not about the work you're doing. Like, shoveling manure can be fun if you've got a great group of guys that you're doing it with, or whatever. So, but Yeah, no, I think that's true. That's true in all aspects of life, really. Just hanging out with people is what life is about. Like, relationship is what life is about. And I believe that's why we were, put here, is to have relationship with each other, with God. And if we could get back to that as being the priority and the most important thing, a lot of this other stuff wouldn't matter quite so much, so yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I just texted you something. I just texted you a ChatGPT rapid fire questions to finish out.
Am I supposed to read?
Yeah, read it. So grab your phone. And
I don't believe in AI.
Yeah, well, it's coming for you. I did want to, like, maybe next time that you come on, maybe we can talk a little bit more like biblical philosophy and faith and stuff like that, because you have some really deep perspectives on that stuff that I enjoy, and it's probably why we like talking about that stuff so much. But that'll be for another day. But I figured to kind of wrap up our parenting business talk for this time, take a look at some of those, and we'll bounce them off each other. Does that sound fun?
Yeah, I'm going to let you right now. My processing speed is like a quad 1.
Okay, good, because there's 20 questions and we have 3 seconds. Ready? Yeah. Okay. Just look at those and pick out a couple that you like. So just give it a second, and then we'll ask each other.
All right, number 10, parenting rapid fire questions. What's your go-to move when your kid is melting down in public? It's a roundhouse kick, the Chuck Norris, obviously.
Oh, that's where you went with that? No, I went with like just staring off into the sunset and like maybe pretending like it's not your child.
Oh, your kid, not somebody else's. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. Honestly, you're asking me, removing them from the situation and finding a quiet place where you can try to work it out. Like, I do not like the over parenting in the moment in the middle of everybody.
Yep.
So like really removing them and trying to, even if it's loud and screaming in a bathroom on the other end of the house or whatever.
Yep.
Like I think it's more effective than just like trying to address it in the moment in a giant crowd.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I like to get right down on my kid's level, like get right down, take a knee if I need to, and
just quit. No.
And just cry. And get kind of right close to them, even bring them in and say, hey, everything's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I don't have a lot of the meltdown stuff, but that's removing them. Yeah, I think I like getting down on their eye level. That does something. It sets them at ease a little bit. I can bring them in, though. I can give them a hug. I can say, because a lot of times, depends on the reason for the meltdown. I mean, if it's just exhaustion, then that's different. But if they're having like an issue, like I can't buy the gumball I wanted or something, like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to kneel down. I'm going to get right in their face. I'm going to say, listen, this is not okay. This is not something that's worth arguing and fighting over. And we kind of go through the spiel, like, is this the path you want to go down? Like, where this is going to end up if you don't stop fighting me on this or whatever. Turn it into an authority talk and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. I like that, especially, and we've done that before too. Like, I'm thinking of like laying on the ground screaming tantrum. That's what I was thinking of, like melting down that way. Like yeah. I mean, if you can just address it in the moment, that's great too. But I'm talking like,
my wife would have to correct me. I don't know if I've ever had the whole like laying down on the ground. I would just walk. Okay, if it's in public, I'm not going to walk away. But if it was at home and they were throwing some kind of a tantrum like that, I would just laugh and probably ignore
them. Yeah, it
them.
says in public. The question says in public. Yeah. Totally different styles in public versus not. Also, different styles in public versus who you're around.
Yeah.
Like if we're in quote public and we're at an event that's mostly my family or something, I would have a different.
Yeah. Certainly, if there were a disruption, if it's in the middle of a concert or a service of some kind or whatever, like,
right.
Yeah, I'm going to handle that a little differently too, probably. But
okay, my turn.
Yep.
All right. One of your favorite moments as a parent so far, number 9.
love traveling with my kids, which I know sounds crazy because I just complained about, how we do in the vehicle, but I love the thought of traveling with them. We do well when we kind of gear up for it. Like if we were to go into battle together, I feel like we'd be a good family that could go into battle together.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy that. But my favorite thing is probably when my kids give me a hug, like a legitimate hug, not like a get over here and give me a hug, like when they just want to give me a hug. Like I've got Ethan who, like, he will get out of bed. He will risk getting a discipline of some kind for to get out of bed to come, and he's like, I just want to hug you a little bit longer, And so like that's a pretty happy moment. I've got a lot of proud moments too. I mean, I've got, Hannah she makes handbags too, just like Shay did, and she sells them at my shop. And so anytime somebody pipes up or they ask like, who makes the handbags? I'd love telling them it's my 14-year-old daughter, and they're like, oh my goodness, you're kidding, So those would be a couple of the things that pop right out to me. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, especially the uninvited hugs. Like, it's really great. Like, it's a really great feeling to like hold your arms out and have them like run to you and then get a hug. But I love when I'm just standing there and all of a sudden I feel like around my leg, like a hug around my leg. Like, hi, honey. Yeah. And just like snuggling, just like for no reason.
Yeah. Yep.
Core memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll do a couple more of the parenting ones. Let's see. Oh, you've got to ask me one now.
How do you stay patient on tough days?
I was going to use that as my number one if you ask me that, because the question is, what's one thing your kids have taught you? That I'm not very good at patience.
That I'm not a good parent.
Yeah. That we're all struggling together.
Yep.
Oh, man. Advice from the podcast. People coming on and telling me how fast life goes and how quick it's gone. Even in the last year, let's say, I'm way more willing to put down what I'm doing and to just sit down and be patient and play or whatever. Because this particular time of their lives, you don't have for very long, man. No. Like when they're up into like teenage years and adulthood, like it's a little different, lasts longer, it feels like, but
yeah.
The younger years, you don't get them back. And everybody says that, and time flies, and it's so true. But I think when I'm trying to, like on tough days, and I've said this to Stephanie before, like on tough days when it's so hard to be patient, it's so hard to, like, you're sleep deprived, you've got a busy schedule, you have to travel, you know, there's stuff that you don't want to do that you have to do. Yeah. The biggest things is we'll look at each other and be like, these are the days that we're gonna want.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna wish for just when I'm 80, I'm gonna wish for one more day of a screaming child in her crib. Yep. And that'll hit you. Whew, that hits me already.
Yeah. People always, like older people, they always say, what specifically do they say? They say, it goes fast. Like, enjoy this time.
Yeah.
It goes
the
by
days
so
are long
fast.
And the years are short. Yeah.
And so we, and numerous people have told us that. And so we're always like, we're like treading water, drowning. Like our chins are just above the water. We're like, remember, these days go fast, And then, but if you can keep that perspective, we've tried to keep that perspective. And we haven't done it perfectly. Like life's, it seems like it's always about getting on to the next stage. Mm-hmm. But we've tried to keep that, at least in our minds, or repeat that to ourselves. Like, one of our favorite songs is Remember When by Alan Jackson. And we listened to that. So like that song makes me cry still. And I'm not even at the point where I'm remembering. Like I'm in the middle of what I'm going to be remembering someday. But and there's a lot of songs like that too. That it just helps me to maintain that perspective of these are the good old days. Is what Shay and I keep telling each other. Like these are the good old days. So have we done it perfectly? Yeah, no, definitely not. But
do you know Corey Asbury's song? These are the days. You've never heard that?
I maybe have heard it, but I don't
Well,
know
you better
it
have a
by-
box of tissues when you.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, let's see if I can get you one more. Let's see. One word to describe fatherhood. I'm not going to ask you one word to describe motherhood like it asks, because you don't know.
One word to describe fatherhood. Imperative. Am I allowed to say more now? No. I think fatherhood is the most underrated role in society currently. If you can find me more than, 5 families that are thriving without the father, I'd be surprised. Like, the father role is just so important. And I'm not taking away from the mother's role. I'm just saying the stability and the, especially for young boys, and just the importance of teaching kids just little intricacies. I just think that the father role has been so desecrated, that I think it needs to be. I think men need to realize how important their role is in their kids' lives. I don't think it can be stated enough.
Well, and the data shows that. It's amazing that men would feel that way when the empirical evidence is obviously in your face. I have some right here. Do you want to hear some?
Sure.
Children with involved fathers are 2 times more likely to do well in school. It's pretty significant. 75% less likely to repeat a grade just with a father in the home. That's from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Father involvement is linked to higher verbal and mathematical skills, behavioral and emotional health. Kids with engaged fathers are 70% less likely to drop out of high school and less likely to be incarcerated or commit violent crimes. Children living without their biological fathers are 2 to 3 times more likely to experience emotional and behavioral problems. Mental health, adolescents with involved fathers show lower rates of depression and anxiety. Father absence correlates with higher suicidality risk in teenagers.
Yep.
Children in father-absent homes are 4 times more likely to live in poverty. Strong father presence predicts higher adult employment rates and income in boys. Girls with involved fathers are more likely to delay, we'll call, adult activity, and report greater confidence and self-esteem. Boys emulate fathers' behavior more than mothers, especially in discipline, conflict resolution, and emotional regulation, according to Pruitt in 2000.
Yeah, the interesting thing is it doesn't even say good fathers,
right,
for those statistics. Like, having a father in the home is good enough for those statistics to put you in the top percentile of a lot of those categories of success, and so I think it's easy to beat ourselves up, over over the things we do. I do it to myself. But just being involved is just so important,
Yeah.
And
you hit it right on the head, because when you look at men in society, especially, and children, and how disaffected they are, all you have to do is look at fatherlessness and see how that's the root cause for a lot of these problems.
Yeah.
The broken home, the lack of discipline, the lack of, there's other effects too. There's psychological effects of not having fathers around. There's so much that they offer, and you can see it in real time.
Yeah. I've talked about, like, even with my wife, who who grew up, and her dad had some struggles that kind of affected her. And I am reaping the benefits. Like, I am reaping the benefits of, man, 6 or 7 or 8 generations of intact families with fathers who chose to do the harder thing, chose to lay down their agenda, chose to put their family and their kids over their wants and sometimes needs, And so that would be my encouragement to anybody who says, well, yeah, obviously it's easy for you to say that. It's like, yes, it is. I'm reaping the benefits. My testimony started, 150 years ago with whoever, and passed down those characteristics to their kids and so on. But like, you can start that today for your kid and for your grandkid and your great grandkid, et cetera, et cetera. You can be the beginning point of the next 150 years of positive outcomes. Is life always perfect? No, absolutely not. Things can sideswipe you. But also following those principles is a good way to start.
Yeah. There's a video. That is such a good point. It's good clarification too, is because everybody has different lived experiences, and that's something that has to be brought into the equation. It's a lot harder to break a generational curse than to reap the benefits of somebody who did it 150 years ago.
Yeah.
And all of the hard work and sacrifice that's gone in since then. For sure.
Yeah.
But it is a conscious decision. And you do see it borne out a lot of times when men decide, I'm going to break this curse, I'm going to start something different. It's because usually, a lot of times, their father was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And they were like, I know what it felt like
Yeah.
to not have this, and my kids are going to have this.
Yeah. It only takes one generation to really screw things up, And so you have to walk that line carefully. And, I don't think we take having kids seriously enough. Like, that's a big decision, It's not just like, oh, yeah, it'd be fun to have a couple kids and we can do the thing and whatever and go to their games and buy them stuff and, have Christmas around the tree or whatever. Like, it needs to be a decision. I mean, and again, I was an idiot when I was first married too. Like, I didn't think any of this stuff through. And so I guess I'm just trying to encourage people, like, no, it's a big decision. Like, take the decision seriously. Really, really weigh if you feel like you are prepared to at least have the conversation of, I'm probably going to have to die to myself. It's probably going to be a thing. And not that you have to be ready for it. Like, I'm not saying you have to be fully prepared before you have kids. I'm just saying it's a great question to ask yourself, or a conversation to have. Yeah.
Yeah. And good to encourage fathers that can be them.
Yeah, absolutely.
People talk all the time about how they want to be an inspiration to people. Well, imagine having the most impressionable little people around you that be an inspiration for them, be an example for them, show them. Show up, die to yourself. It's all stuff that we've been talking about here.
Yeah.
Put in the hard work. It's hard work. It's very easy to go and do what you want to do and throw those responsibilities aside. That's easy. It's hard to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to continue a generations of great parenting or great fatherhood or great mentors, or like it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah. You have to get your kids to buy in to it. You have to get them to realize the importance of this. And because it doesn't do any good either to just have this be a one generation thing. Like, they have to be able to pass it on to their kids. Mm-hmm. I've heard a quote that something along the lines of, you can judge how well you parented by how your grandkids turn out. And so that the goal is to keep it going, and the goal is to raise children who love people and are here to serve and to make life a little less hellish for somebody else along the way, you know. One of my favorite things to do is to just encourage dads, like, hey, you're a good dad, you know. And you see it sometimes. For some reason, the other day I was driving to work and I saw, it was like 7:00 in the morning, and I saw two different dads out walking their like little 2-year-olds, you know, just down the sidewalk. And I'm like, they had an early morning, you know, and they weren't going to school. It wasn't that type of deal. And I didn't, but I want to just yell out to them like, hey, you're doing the important stuff. Like that is the important thing right there, you know? And, I don't think we hear that enough. Like, I don't think there's enough encouraging voices just telling you can do it. It's going to be okay. You're doing the important thing. You're doing the right thing. Like, keep going. There's plenty of the other voices, you know. There's plenty of the other voices. And for moms too, like, you know, our culture is kind of designed to rip mothers away from their kids, you know. And I don't think it's healthy, you know, and fine, whatever, do what you got to do. But also, like, moms need to hear, like, how important it is to be the ones influencing their children, you know, and to have that input into their lives. I think moms can get discouraged and feel like, oh, I'm just a mom, or you know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, you're just responsible for like human lives. Like, that's it. You know, that's all you are. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, right. Sure. Yeah. Yep.
To be able to kind of wrap your head around the gravity of that. Why are we doing that in society? Like, I can't even think of anything off the top of my head that's more important than what mothers do. Like, literally growing and nurturing and teaching the young generations. Yeah. Name something more important than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think our priorities have gotten a little out of whack. I think we've placed comfort, you know, ahead of hard work. We've put ease ahead of discipline. You know, in our lives, we've kind of made it so that our goal is to create as comfortable of a society, or our goal is to make our lives easier.
Convenience over consistency.
Yeah, and so along with that, then you kind of end up going down this whole road of, well, income is more important than all of a sudden than sacrifice. Contentment takes a back seat to getting, you know, we are a arrives in 2-day culture, you know, now. And I think human nature, it's super hard not to get sucked into that. I think that is by nature, we are designed to make ourselves more comfortable. And, you know, I don't know why. I think it's, again, the whole thing of, like, we've been lied to that, you know, creating an environment that is pleasurable for us is going to fulfill us. And don't get me wrong, like, I like my comforts too, but also, like, I know the value of hard work, like, and I know where laziness leads to. Like, you can't tell me that sitting on your couch and playing video games all day is fulfilling. Like, oh, that sounds great. We'll just sit around and relax and not do anything. Yeah, and then your soul will deteriorate right along with your health and your well-being and everything else. And so we've kind of shoved that aside. And for moms, I think it's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know why we feel like, oh, you're just a mom. Oh, you're going to stay home with your kids. yeah, it's just, and again, I've got no problem with people making whatever decisions they need to make, but then also like, don't come after, don't say that stuff to me. Like, if you want to go and you want to do the business thing and whatever, that's great. Go for it. But don't tell my wife that she's just a mom. Mm-hmm. That's not
gonna fly.
You're not, your priorities are a little bit out of whack, if that's the kind of conversation we're gonna have.
Yeah, there's an undertone there that's not from a good place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, rapid fire business questions. I'll start. Mm-hmm. Number 2, coffee or energy drinks?
Neither.
Well, lame. What a lame answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't stand coffee, and I don't know, energy drinks. I can't get into them, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing. If you're not, then don't.
I would love to love coffee. I try to do it, and I can't do it. I have to put
for social reasons, you mean? Or like you can't taste it?
Oh,
Like the taste?
well, no, I don't. I can't stand the taste. I have to put in
Me too.
so much sugar that it's like, okay, I know this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't affect me. Like, I can drink a Mountain Dew and then lay down and go to sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Caffeine doesn't really affect you the same?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not.
Okay, well, you don't get to answer my question with a non-answer, so I'm going to pick another one first. Okay. Who's your business role model?
I don't.
This is going really well. Okay, let me pick a different one.
I am way too narcissistic to have a role model.
Okay, you ready? I got a better one.
I shouldn't say that. You know what? One of my bosses that I worked for right before I started our shop, Ezra, you've had on Segrist. He was a great business role model. He cared about people as well. And I think about some of the stuff that attitudes that I had about, and it's embarrassing, to be honest with you. He dealt with it so graciously, and was able to maintain relationship. We're still good friends, and so I would put him on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think about it too much, but yeah, he definitely had an influence.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. Yep.
It's good to have those.
Yeah. All right. Early mornings or late nights?
Oh, late nights. I know, it's brutal. I wish I was not that way, but I am. So there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
I get a ton done at night.
Yeah.
Like it maybe just be the way I'm wired, or a product of my growing up or college years. I don't know what it is, but like when push comes to shove and it's late, I just go.
Yeah.
But caveat, I would love to be a morning person. And I actually started trying, and then we had kids. Good luck being a morning person when you don't sleep.
Yeah, you can't
if
do
you're not
both.
already.
You can't do both. You definitely can't do late nights and early mornings.
No way.
I'm a night person, but I force myself to be, I don't think I'd call it, I'm not a morning person. I force myself to get up early because I have to get my day going. Like my day doesn't go well if I started out with my kids waking me up.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
All right. What's one business mistake you'll never forget?
Okay.
Is that a pretty hard one, or is it pretty easy one?
No, that's pretty easy. There was a car right early on when we had started our business. Then we bought the Quick Lube that we were renting sort of next to, and there was a mistake that was made, kind of our fault, and had an engine issue, and the car was not worth very much money.
Right.
And so what I should have done was just paid the guy for the car. Like it probably would have been like $200, but I just felt so bad. I was just like beside myself. And so I told the guy that I would pay him for the car because it wasn't worth putting the repair work into. And then I told him that, as a smoothing things over gesture, I would give him free oil changes on his pickup truck for the rest of the time that he had his pickup truck. Well, he had that pickup truck for like 8 years. So I think, and it required a special oil. And so I think I ended up paying about 10 grand for that $200 mistake. Yeah, it was great. So yes.
Don't do that.
Sometimes a business owner, if they have my personality, will tend to offer an exorbitant solution to the issue. And so I've learned to ask the customer, what do you feel would be fair? And then, as long as the customer is, they're dealing with you in good faith,
they just say,
you come to an agreement. Nobody gets free oil changes for the rest of their lives anymore. I just buy the car. No, I'm just kidding. So,
right.
But yeah,
that's going to be a hard thing with your personality to like be because you're very intentional about your employees and how they feel and how they feel valued, as also you are with your clients, and you want them to be able to come back and to enjoy work. You just went kind of a little too far.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with doing business in a small town, like you have to sort of know what you're doing and be honest and smile. Like that's pretty much a recipe for success, here in Lewis County. And so the problem is I'm such a people pleaser. With that stuff that I
go overboard.
It was a learning thing, and it was really early on, and so it was a good lesson. But man, I resented every single time that guy, and he didn't do anything wrong. All he did was like accept what I get. Like it wasn't his fault. Deal. Yeah. And so, but man,
he did agree to that very quick.
I was so glad, like when he traded that truck.
You should have just bought the truck at some point. Probably would have been worth it.
Probably would have. Yeah, that was an easy one. Yeah. Hire for talent or character?
Character all day. That's easy. Yes. I think any business owner would say that. It's so easy to teach skills and produce. I think it's natural talent. It's probably what it's talking about here. Yeah. But it's so much easier to teach skills that translates to talent versus change character.
Oh, yeah.
So that's not even a hard one.
Yeah, people don't really change either. I mean, not much. And so I've definitely gone down that road of, we're going to see what your personality is like before we worry about what you can do, Do you have to kind of have a work with your hands mentality? Like, yeah, I'm not going to hire somebody to work on cars who hates working with their hands, obviously. But
that's been something I've struggled with that too, because I am a benefit of the doubt giver. Yeah. Like to a fault.
Yeah.
And once somebody shows you their true colors, you have to part ways. You have to kind of get rid of that cancer.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me because I want to give everybody the opportunities to prove themselves to me or to prove themselves in their business and with their talents and whatever. But like that's a problem I run into sometimes, is giving too many chances.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of business advice and books and curriculums and seminars, it's like they have this default, like, oh, well, you just pick the best candidate. It's like, what if you only have one candidate? Then what do you do?
Or what?
The
people who do that are hiring doctors and engineers and like super high qualified people for the position.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like you said, some industries, they don't have that readily available.
Right.
Some areas don't have that readily available.
Yeah.
And sometimes you put out a post for a hiring and you need somebody, your business needs somebody, and you have to take a chance on somebody. So
yeah. And that's why hiring for talent is great. I'd love to be able to hire for both.
Yeah, is there a both? Can I get a both? It didn't say on there,
I was just looking at it. It says hire for talent or character.
Easy.
I would take character over talent any day. And at our business, I had something come up where a customer kind of questioned something, and I can beyond a shadow of a doubt, explicitly say, I'm telling you, this, it was not, whatever happened, it was not ill intent. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I trust everybody like that. And that's, a great feeling to have as a business owner. I'm very lucky to be able to have that.
And when you find people who have the talent and the character, you're like, do whatever you can to keep them forever.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Invest in them. It's good from one owner to others out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish up. We're getting ready to wrap up. What a great episode.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up with a couple crossover, kind of joining both larger topics that we talked about. Crossover parenting meets business, rapid fires. We can actually probably go through these kind of quick.
Yeah.
Harder job, running a business or raising kids?
Oh, man. 50-50.
Split down the middle for you?
I think so, but I think I do a better job raising kids than I do running my business, so I probably put more effort into that.
What about
seems a little harder?
What about raising businesses and running kids?
Yeah, right. Yep. No, they both have huge challenges. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner on that one, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I think the impact and the intricacies of like parenting children on a 24-hour basis, like especially for mothers, okay, but then running a business, my gosh, there's so many variables that can change all the time. And
yeah, if you had to ask me though, which would I rather do, like be at home, like I am not a stay at home with my kids all day thing. Like I don't know how my wife does it, so I would probably say maybe then that raising, kids would be harder, but like she has the grace for that. I don't, but she would, she would probably say the opposite. Like, I don't want to run the business. I'm like, I don't want to put all the time and effort into what you do, either.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. What's the next one?
Do your parenting skills help you in business?
Oh, patience. Yeah. I'm getting better at patience.
Yeah.
And that's just also, definitely put it in perspective. I think like, everything that goes wrong with the business I used to think was like cataclysmic. Yeah. And when you put into perspective like life and raising kids and then it's just so much more go with the flow and problem solving and I'm partners. We're unique. I'm partners with my wife in business and in life. So and with parenting, so that helps too. So we've grown that way.
Yeah.
Well, about you?
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's a lot of the same skill set, problem solving, even disputes that come up between employees or
communication,
working things out, problem solving, patience, long suffering, and just like, okay, is this really how today's going to go? Like some days it's like, all the crazy scenarios happen in one day, and so just grinding through. And some days with kids, like sometimes kids are just off. They just have an off day and you just have to grind through,
Yep.
So no, I definitely think there's a lot of correlations for sure.
Definitely.
Yep.
All right. Next one. Do you bring work stress home?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No way to shut it off.
No.
I would have been interested to see, like in my policing work, if I would have been able to shut it off. Like I used to be able to get off shift and be done.
Yeah.
Very unique that way. A lot of people can't do that. I don't know with running a company if you can do that, especially because when you're working for somebody, when you clock out, you're done. You know, like the responsibilities are over. But when you run your own business, if somebody calls you at 11 o'clock at night with a big problem, like you're on call.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to separate the two, especially when I work from home a lot.
Yeah.
So
for me, it's just the mental, like running an auto repair shop, which has large consequences if you screw something up, the car wash in the wintertime around here, like a door getting left open is frozen pipes or a furnace going down. And then with the quick lube, like there's 30 transactions a day, invoices or 30 to 40. So there's 30 or 40 potential like issues that could come up. It's constantly on my radar and on my mind. I think I'm better than I used to be. Like when something comes up now, because we're in a better financial spot, I can say, you know what, we can fix that for you, Mr. Customer. And it doesn't have to be like this huge thing. And we can have, like when a customer calls up and, they're upset about something, my first response is, yeah, we're going to take care of this. Let's figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a totally different thing than like if I was desperate and I couldn't afford to give out you know, some money to make up for it or whatever, you know, whatever the situation would be.
Financial
take care of
security.
it.
Financial
Yeah,
security
it just makes a huge difference.
Big difference
so,
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What lesson from business do you teach your kids?
Oof.
That's might not be as relevant for you.
No.
How to swim?
What?
How to swim?
Yeah. Well, man, maybe that's a better question for you.
Yeah.
What lessons from business do you teach your kids?
Money management and how to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing.
Like a lot of organizational skills. Yeah.
But also like like my kids come into the shop. Olivia works there with me. But like for Carson, when he comes in, trying to stretch him a little bit, hey, go out and ask that customer what they need. He's kind of a little more laid back and shy, you know, like just like interacting with people. And
interesting. Yeah.
That kind of life stuff.
Yeah. So those are all things I wouldn't have thought necessarily, you know, that you can mingle your parenting with your business directly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. My kids are too small for that. Really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess on a macro level, probably some similarities, but
yeah. Yep.
More chaotic, staff meeting or family dinner? What a good one to end on.
That's not even. Yeah, I'm not even going to justify that with an answer. No, I'm just kidding. Family dinner is way more exciting.
Yeah, that's a better word than chaotic.
Yeah. Yep. No, staff meetings go pretty well.
Yep.
So,
did you know that only 35% of parents regularly sit down to eat dinner as a family? More than 5 times a week?
That's higher than I would have thought it is. Even. Yep.
So that is something that we're trying to do more and more.
Yep. Very important.
You guys do that pretty well. They say. Who's they?
They.
They say.
Them.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to end. This is going to be loaded with great stuff for people to take. Yeah. And I love talking to you. You're very eloquent, very intelligent, and I learn a lot from you every time we do this. So
yeah. Well, it was an interesting off day for me to come in just with some stuff going on. So I hope that I portrayed humility, because I don't have all the answers or most of the answers. And so if people can get some encouragement out of it, that would be wonderful. So yeah.
Good.
Cool.
Tyson Roggie. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Brock.
See ya.